make sure you can see my screen here. All right. Cool. So today we'll be focused on more of the like moderating portion and then reporting. So there's definitely a few different tips and tricks that I'll have for you, and then any questions that you have again. This one is a little bit shorter than our last training, so if you do have questions, feel free to bring those up. We can go through
Okay.
anything. All right, so.
I'm going to try building my first activity Monday
All right,
when I
awesome,
get back. Yeah, we've got all the questions, so
nice.
I'll try
Yeah,
to get those in and see what I can make them look like.
nice. Have any travel plans for Thanksgiving?
No, I'm hosting.
All right,
Everybody's driving to me.
that helps.
It's a mixed blessing.
Yes, definitely. Awesome. So what we're going to start out with is different ways of communicating with participants. So I actually have pulled up one of our more recent demo communities that we did just because it has a couple of extra new features that we didn't add to older communities. And so the first one is being with our comments section and also within conversation task, being able to respond or reply to somebody's comment. So I can actually view any of the comments sections, so below each of my activities. This one's a fun dog picture, so that's always helpful. um,
Yeah.
and so one thing we've added recently is something called response bubbles. And so you'll see here it says view to replies. So each of these replies are in this same thread. So this first comment is like the original, and then these two below are those replies to it. And
Okay.
so the way you do that is I can do it from the original, and this little text bubble icon, so it's got two little text bubbles. If I mouse over it, it actually says reply to, and then it'll say the user's name who I'm clicking on. So I can click that
Okay.
to open it up, or I can even just reply to his comment down here in the replies. So I can click that text bubble, it'll open up my reply. I can go ahead and type in my response and click send, and then that'll keep it in this same thread. And what's nice
Okay.
about that is this participant, since it's his thread and you're applying to his comment, he's going to get notified about that in a couple of different ways. One is he'll see it up here in the top right on the envelope icon. So you can see I have 33 unread messages in this community.
Hmm.
So I wasn't a part of it, so I wasn't responding to anybody or looking through it. So I can see I've got new messages or unread messages, and so they'll get a notification there to look there, but they'll also see it here in the bubble, so they can respond in either place. And then they'll also get an email notifying them of like, hey, you have a reply to your comment. And so they'll be able to click straight from that email and come in and continue that conversation.
So, just a matter of information. When they have
Yeah.
problems like that, do I report that, or is that something that's automatically caught, or
Yeah. So
how does that work?
yeah. So in this instance, where they were having difficulty uploading, that's something you can direct them to us. So you can either have them just email support@digsite.com, or if
Okay.
we have somebody in there already helping you kind of with moderating or even just managing the recruit, then we
Mhm.
would have someone in there and being able to help out in that situation.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good question. So then the other way within an activity is I can schedule another or more or different scheduled emails, which could be reminders or overdue. So to get into the activity, again, I would click my little gear icon to edit one that's already created. And then I would go in here to scheduling and rewards. And I can see any scheduled emails that were sent out. And so maybe I'm like, okay, I've got several more people who haven't come in, I want to set up a reminder email. I can go ahead, come in here, I'll click the type reminder, and then I'll set up that schedule. I can edit this if I need to, and then I can go ahead and save it. And again, that's going to show up in the modal here. So I would hit done and save the activity, and then that would send out my reminder email. And so you can set up multiple reminder emails for each activity. Again, when you have your default set up, there will be at least one reminder already set up to go. And so it kind of depends on, again, like how long your research is going. So if this research, they had like a couple days to do this, I would make sure I had at least 1 or 2 emails each day. So like the announcement email would go out when it started, and then I might have a reminder email that evening, and then the next day I might have a reminder email kind of mid-morning, and then the next day I would have a reminder go out super early in the morning, and then another one later in the evening. So generally my rule of thumb is to keep each activity to 2 emails per day if you're sending out reminders. And then again, if you have reminders and then it's going to reach the due date, go ahead and set up an overdue email too.
And this is when you got an activity that's running like 3 days?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
So again, it kind of depends on the cadence. So if it's only a 1-day activity, then maybe only you have the announcement and then just a reminder later in the day. So yeah, it's
have
dependent.
you, I know you guys don't have, you have some B2B, but have you noticed any difference in the participation or reluctance to get poked that much?
Yeah, so I don't know if we have actual like data or anything, but yeah, B2B, depending on who you're going after, a reminder email may not be helpful.
Right.
And so if we've done the recruit, one thing that we can also do is send just a text message reminder. And that's actually something we're currently working on building to have in the platform. So people can opt into that. So it's not going to go to everybody, just those who have opted into getting a text reminder. So yeah, so that's something we're looking to have done in the first month or 2 of the next year. So we're currently working on that now. So that's actually been something was really helpful for us. And when we have like larger communities of like 75, 100 people, and they're like, oh, there's like 15 to 20 stragglers, we can send out a text message, and that helps them kind of get into it. So we do have that option if we are recruiting as well.
Okay. But if I have I would have to get the cell phone numbers in order to be able to utilize that if it's my recruit. Okay.
Right.
Sure.
And so if you do have those, we could help send a text for you.
Gotcha.
But yeah, you would have to have that information too then.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then once our new SMS feature is built, then you can have the people who are coming in set up their own phone number for that. So hoping to tell you more about that in the near future. So
that's great.
Yeah. So again, I mentioned the envelope icon where they can see comments, but this is also a place if you want to send a private message, you can do that. So again, you can come in here and add a new message and select who it's going to go to. So you can even talk to other admin users, but then you can, if you have segments created, this community doesn't have anybody in segments, but if you have segments created, you can send it to a whole segment, or you can just select individual participants and send them that private message that way. Or what you can do is actually go from their response. So let's see if there's an open-ended. Okay, here, perfect. So any place there's an open-ended response. So this can be in a survey task on DigSite that's open-ended. It can be in a conversation task. Those responses are all open-ended. And it can also be in the whiteboards or in the fill in the blank. So anytime there's a response where participants typing something in, essentially, you'll be able to click on the envelope icon, and that will actually create a message straight to this person from their response. And then what's nice is once you've asked them the question, they've come in and answer. If you want to be like, oh, what was this based off of again? You can actually click and view their response from there. So let me come in here and see if there was. Here we go. So I can actually see what this person's replying to from the original response.
Mm-hmm.
And then if I click into, I can click, so this is the name of the task. I can actually click on it and it'll take me to that location. So that's kind of one way to tracking. But again, just kind of the difference there then. So the comments and any replies you're doing on a conversation task, those are going to be public. And then any of those messages or when you've clicked on an envelope icon for a participant, those are going to be your private messages.
Okay.
So just kind of a little bit of differentiation there. One other area where you can go to send out a message is from the participants page. And so let's say I want to send out maybe a thank you email, or maybe I'm filtering and I'm looking for people who are overdue and I want to send one last kind of general email to them. I can get the group that I want and I'll click the avatars to give them the green check mark. I can also click on the little checkbox to select all. And then
Okay.
once I've selected the people, I can use this drop down that says apply to selected, and I can click on custom email. And then when I click go, it's just going to open up this nice, pretty blank email template for me. So I can create my subject line, put anything I need to in the body of it. And so that's actually going to, email will include a link for them to come in and log in. So you don't have to worry about adding anything like that, but you basically have just a blank template here, and this will send the email out to all of the participants I've selected. So that's, for that one, it's more of like a general email or a notification. Like I said, maybe one reason you do that is you have a group of overdue people who are kind of all over the board and you just want to kind of get a general email out to them to come in. Or this could be a place where you're thanking everybody, or it could be maybe you have a delay. Maybe you are going to have them check out a concept, but you don't have the concept art or the image that you need for it. And they're like, oh, we're going to delay this just a little bit. So it can be kind of an informative email as well.
Okay.
Cool. And so one thing we like to encourage moderators to do, I guess I didn't cover this last time, so let's do, so if you ever want in your text of the instructions, you can have things bold or italicized or use bullet points. And so it uses something called markdown language within the instructions. So if you want to bold something, you can put 2 asterisks in the beginning and the end. So this could be a word, it could be a phrase or a full paragraph. But at that point, then you probably don't need the bolding if it's a full paragraph. And then I can also italicize with 1 asterisk before and after. And then to use bullet points, I can do an asterisk and then a space and then type out a sentence or word if maybe I have some specific instructions that I want them to kind of follow, or at least certain items I want them to read as a bullet. So that's a nice little trick to use when you're setting up the instructions or want to just tell people, hey, this is what this activity is going to cover and what we'll have you be looking at. So you can use any of those tricks as well. And were you sent the moderator guide at all, Sandra?
I don't think so.
Okay, so I can make sure you get that. I'm just gonna take the note here. Awesome. So I'll make sure you have that, and that'll kind of cover through a lot of what we talked about. See, it's just kind of a written down format, so it'll be pretty helpful when you're starting out.
Okay.
Awesome. And so one thing that we did talk about last time was the back room. Again, I was kind of mentioning you can use it however you see fit, but it's also kind of a way where you can communicate with other admin users. So if you have other people you're working with that are just observers or contributors, you can communicate back here. You can also communicate with them using just a message. So like I said, one of the choices here is I can contact contributors and observers. So there's a couple ways within DigSite to do that kind of communication if you need it. That just kind of helps keep it in one place. The other thing that can happen with the back room involves pinning. And so I'm just gonna go to an activity that has some responses. So if I'm looking through, I see a particular response and I want this to maybe get discussed amongst other people using it. Again, if it's just you moderating, you probably don't need to discuss with other people. But if you were, so this thumbtack icon, this is our pinning feature. And so it actually does a couple of different things. So when I pin it, it actually is adding it into what we call a smart reporting. So it'll be on that. I can also just uncheck this and not have it because maybe I just want to send it to the back room. But I can actually give this pin a name. And the default name is just the task name, or here where it's question 2 lets me know it's on the survey as question 2. If I don't change this name, it's not really going to show up anywhere, so I can just leave it. But I can edit the response, so maybe there's like a typo or something like in my report. I don't really want typos showing up, so I can edit this, or maybe this response was like 2 full paragraphs. I'm like, I just want this key piece, and so I can delete and get rid of items I don't need from it, and just kind of narrow in. And so when I save that, that saves it to that smart reporting, and I'll show you kind of what that looks like towards the end. But I can also choose a spot on the back room to send this to. So maybe I have my activities back there. I'm like, okay, for activity 2, I just want to keep these big items together and check them out there. Or maybe I have a question or something like that. So I can type in any kind of thing that I've got a question about or discuss this finding. And so I can put my note in there. And then when I save it, it actually gets sent over to the back room. So then I can spot it there. Well, looks like I'm not the only one sending new pins back here, so that's fun. So then here I've got it on activity 2, and so now I can have observers and other people commenting in the back room like, oh, okay, can we add a question that asks more about this in the next activity? So things like that. So again, the back room can be used in that way to, I've got this participant's response, it's referencing this item. Do we want to explore more about this? All right. Cool. So it's kind of the pinning to the back room. And then we'll talk more about pinning when we talk through that report. And so one other item, they moved things around on me. All right, so in open-ended responses, I do want to just kind of touch on again the tags. So again, open-ended responses, you'll see this little tag icon. When you click on it, you can add manual tags to the response. But what you'll see before you add any manual tags are the automatic tags, and those are getting generated by our natural language processor. So
Okay.
we have our platform hooked up to Google's NLP, and that's actually looking to see if more than one person has said a word, and it's not like the word and or I, then it's going to include that here automatically. And so in some instances that can be really helpful, and maybe sometimes it's not really that helpful. So maybe there's something back here that I'm like, I don't really need this. And I can come back here and actually just click X and delete that word. And the only places this is really going to show up are in those reports. So if you download the full participant report, you'll see tags in these open-ended conversation responses. And then the detailed report on Excel will also show tagged words. However, tagged words in the Smart Report are actually going to help generate a little word cloud for you. So if you have words that you're like, oh, I don't really need that showing up at all, I can actually, up here in the top right, I can click Manage Community Tags. And this is going to show me everything that's in my entire community. And so I was like, oh, I know this word. I don't really need it. There's probably let's go with the word I. So I see that's 5 times been tagged across my entire community. I'm like, the word I in this context doesn't really help me. I can delete it. It's going to let me know that I want to. And so I can go ahead and delete this word from the entire community. But so I can access that community tag area from any tagged word response here. So from any open-ended response. So I just wanted to point that out, and I'll point out how that word cloud looks and then where it's showing up in reporting as well later. And so again, I just wanted to, we'll bounce back to the pins here. So I can see these ones are blue, so that lets me know I've pinned them once already. And so maybe this one up here, it's longer. I can actually click on it. I can see, since this is the first one, it's been pinned 14 times. So when we demo and train, apparently we click this button a lot. So I could come in here and tell, like, I'm thinking a reasonable number for this is maybe only 2 or 3 times to like drill down. But then you can see here where there's a lot going on. So again, maybe I'm just trying to drill down to, I want these different key items, but I want them in separate pins. So I can go ahead and separate them out and just pin this item 3 times and get each of those 3 items for myself. So this is the conversation task, and that's how.
So you pin it 3 times, and then you just edit the parts of that pen that you want out from the first one, and then the second one, and then by the third one you should have everything's in there, but it's in a different. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah. So I could just pin it once, and then I've got everything in here. But because there's different types of thoughts in here. So maybe the first time I pin it, I get rid of everything after this sentence. I'm like, okay, this seems pretty important. And so the next time I come in and pin it, I don't need that one. And so now I'll do the next one.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. We're on the same page. I just wanted to make sure I was getting that right.
No, yeah. I'm just trying to give as many tips as I can without
Yeah. Yeah.
So again, so that's our conversation task. So that's all open-ended. I can do it with surveys and fill in the blank tasks, and then also in my whiteboard, I can do it from just mousing over the response, and I have the thumbtack. But again, the easier view here is clicking response view and then being able to read through a little more orderly, and then I can click the
Mm-hmm.
thumbtack icon over to the right. So
Mm-hmm.
it's a little more helpful in that view.
Yeah.
Awesome. And then, so there's one area where all of my pins go. And so on the left-hand side, I've got document and report. And so I have a page called my pins. And so this is where all of those pins will go. And so at first, when you come in here, you'll just see what's pinned most recent down to what you pinned first. So that can, in a large or a full week activity of activities and responses, that could get a little much if you're pinning a lot of good things. So you are able to filter. And so if you have multiple moderators in pinning, you can just pick yourself to make sure you've got what you need. But then you can also filter by certain tasks. So that kind of makes it a little more manageable.
Mm-hmm.
So I can make sure, okay, these are the items I've got for this one. Maybe I want to look for individual participants. I can do that. Or maybe I'm looking for specific tag words that I've got from responses.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can also look and make sure I'll find just the ones that are included in Smart Reporting. And then there's also this one in here called auto pins. And so before you start pinning a lot of items, you can actually come in here to the My Pins wall. And under
Mm-hmm.
this Take Action, I have this Run Auto Pinning tool. And so what
Mm-hmm.
that's going to do for me is actually going to read through each of my tasks. And for each task, it's going to give me 2 of the most positive responses and 2 of the most negative, and then it'll give me 2 neutral comments as well.
Okay.
So that's kind of like a nice quick way. I can run that and then go add more on my own. But if I want to get a kind of quick view of maybe what's shaking out in my community and I want to view a smart report really quick, I can run the auto pinning tool and do that. And so I also, in here, I have little check boxes so I can select these. And so I can make sure these are included in Smart Reporting, or I can delete a whole group of these pins if I don't need them. Another item I can do here, same kind of icon where I edit an activity. The edit button is this little gear icon. So I can come in here and actually edit this pin. And so the sentiment is going to be determined. Again, it will use the natural language processor first, but if I'm like, this doesn't really make sense to have a positive, maybe I want this just to be neutral, I can come in here and change that and update. And now instead of the green ring around it, it's just the regular gray. So I can tell that it's that neutral comment now. So that's kind of how the pin wall looks. So we'll hop on, cover some items about reporting. So again, the first page you come here, standard reports. I can preview my participant results. I can also download as a PDF. I do have the funnel icons here. And one kind of little trick is it doesn't matter which funnel you click on. They all look the same and they'll all apply to the ones you're looking at. So they'll all have, if I want specific activities or certain tagged words, if I want to filter by segment or participants.
Mm-hmm.
And generally, if you're looking for segments, generally the best report for that is the detailed report, just because it's in Excel, and then you can kind of combine and compare if you're looking across certain segments. So I'll go ahead and download the Excel report, and we'll look at that in a second here. Backroom report, again, that's items found in the backroom. My activity guide, that's going to be any items that is not including responses. So if you're working with someone or you're like, oh, here's the activity guide that we used in DigSite. So it'll show all the activities and tasks you've set up and the questions within them. And so you can kind of show that or save that if you need that kind of thing. I think I have to figure out. All right, I'm going to go ahead and just share the screen. And so the detailed report, just want to point out some things here. All right. So make this a little bit larger. All right. So you'll get a little cover page when you first download the detailed report. So it lets me know the community when I created this report, the account owner of the community, and then if I've done any filtering, that'll show up over here. So if it just says display participant, I haven't filtered it by anything. And then I've got participants, so I can come in here, I can see the name, email, I can see any segments that I've placed these participants into. And then if I used a DigSite screener, my screener results will be here. Otherwise, if we help with the recruiting and we've used Qualtrics, we would send you an Excel file with those responses out of Qualtrics. So that would also be Excel, but just kind of showing responses. But this one has a nice little graph charts. So that's kind of nice. And then I'll get to view my activities. So if I've got comments within each activity, those are actually going to show up here. So I can follow along each comment that was made on activity 1, and then so on and so forth. The messages tab here, this is going to include all of those items that I had in those messages. So follow-up questions I was asking, or if there were any issues that people wanted help, and I replied to them, letting them know what they needed to do. That's going to show up here. If you've used a forum, that's going to show up on this forum. Otherwise, you can delete that one. And then when I get to my first task, it's going to go ahead and tell me the name. So this one was a survey, category snapshot. And then I can go ahead and read through everybody's response. So I've got question 1, and this was the question. And so I can read through all of these open-ended. I also have date time-stamped, and then my next column here is that I can see which ones have been pinned. So I'm like, these were those important items, so those are the ones I can instantly gravitate toward and pull out and pull into another report if I need to, or I can just highlight them right away. It's like, all right, this one's pinned, I'm going to go ahead and bold that. And so conversation, this one is going to also look pretty similar, but instead of having multiple questions, there's just the one response. So I'll go ahead and get to scroll over, and I can see what text that these people placed. Again, I have a pinned column. And then if they uploaded any images, I'll be able to actually just select this little link, and I can plug it in to my browser, and that'll pull it up. So I can pull it from here, or if I just want to snag the link from the preview report, I can do that from here as well. So if I scroll down to where there's images, I can either left click and drag it into something, or right click and save it, or copy it to put in another report. I don't know if you use PowerPoint a lot or anything like that, but so that's one nice and quick way. And so the images will be here, and also if they've uploaded any videos, you'll be able to view those from this tab as well. Let's go to a whiteboard here. So this, the whiteboard in the detail report, it shows me my original image, and then will show me kind of that heat map version. So this is where people have placed their icons. So this is a nice clean area to snag an image from as well. And then I can see that I've got 64% of the icons that were placed were likes, 20% that were dislikes, and then 16% that were kind of question marks, or people didn't know what those brands were. And then If I used my sections, it's going to pull them out by section. So this one was Clorox. And so I can go ahead and read what people liked and disliked about those brands. So that's kind of how the whiteboard will look. All right, they deleted all my data for household products on voting. We can go ahead and talk about it anyways. So when you have a voting task, what you'll see is the items are going to be placed in order. Number 1 here is going to be your highest ranked. So more people gave it thumbs up than thumbs down, and so this is your best one. So it'll give you actually a number here. So maybe it was 15, and maybe it had 10 people, or sorry, no, it had 20 people. Oops, that's way too many. 20 people give it an upvote, and 5 people gave it a downvote. And so it's going to go ahead and have those numbers there. Apparently it doesn't like to save what I put in there. Oh, I think I have to put it there. So 20 and then 5. All right. So you'll see something that looks like that. And so it'll just be in rank. So again, since this one would have had the most highest net vote number, it'll be at the top, and then the one at the bottom would have the lowest. And so you get to see exactly how many upvotes and how many downvotes it had. And then you get to see who gave it an upvote, who gave it a downvote within there. And then for fill in the blank, that actually gives you a couple of different views. So it shows you the fill in the blank kind of in paragraph form here, and the little brackets show those were where you had the blanks to fill. And so under each of those, so you're able to give it a title for that. And so under each of the titles, it's going to give you what people placed there. But then under that, it's going to give somebody's total response. So the first part is all kind of broken out. And I know some people have used this and they want to make their own kind of word cloud to show in a report. Some people are just really excited about word clouds. So you can snag it from here to make that word cloud out of a fill in the blank, because our smart report doesn't have a word cloud for fill in the blank. So that's kind of why some people like to use it from here. But then, like I said, you'll see their full response in here. So you can read it in kind of full sentence form. So it makes it a little easier if you can read this version rather than try to piece together all of their separated versions. All right, so that's the detailed report. Let's scroll back up here. And so the other report up here, the data file, so that's going to be a CSV. Some people really like this because they like to do a lot of different comparisons on their own, and they want just each person's response in one column so they can kind of view it that way. So we just have several different options for how you like to analyze your data. So we'll pull that up. So you can see I've got my users here. So it's going to have, your first ones are likely to be the moderators. So it just includes everybody that's in there. So then once I get down to my participants, now I can see if they're in particular segments within this community. It'll say yes. And then I'll get to see all of their responses just by scrolling across this whole CSV report. So again, this is if you need like a flat file and you want to use that kind of thing for your analysis. So let's talk about Smart Report. And so that'll load up. And so we did mention, or we did talk about this a little bit, but very briefly last time. So at any time, you can click the funnel and actually filter your Smart Report. So if you are looking for just a particular segment or specific participants, tasks or activities, you can filter that. And what's nice when you do filter is it's actually going to then save it over here in your archive reports. So you can come back to your archive and just pull out what you've already kind of done for filtering if you need it again. And then this download, that downloads it to a PDF file. And so I've got my buttons down here to go to the next page. And so this is our second kind of cover page. So it tells me which activities I've gotten. And this is just an overview page. So again, I can click next page. And then when I'm on my first task, this is that category snapshot. So this is a survey, and this is question 1. So for open-ended survey questions, you'll see I've got this word cloud here, and it'll give me numbers. And so again, if there's words here that I'm like, this doesn't make sense, or I don't really need this, I can go ahead and delete those words, or I can go add my own to make sure they're showing up here in my word cloud. But on the right side here, I can start seeing my pinned responses. So those were those important items. And then I can click next page. There weren't more pinned responses. So that was anticlimactic on my part. So if there were more pinned items, I would see this next page just have pinned responses for question 1. And so I can continue going through the survey task and through the pins, or I can click next section, and that's actually going to kind of fast forward me to the next task. So anytime I click next section, that just gets me to the next task, or previous section will get me to the one before. And so this was my conversation task, a day in your life. And so this one also will have the word cloud, and then my pinned responses will show up. And so if they have images, you'll get to see them here. They look a little squished in this view, but they'll expand when you download it as a PDF if you do that. And so again, here, if I clicked next page, now I'm seeing those pinned responses. And I mentioned typing in a title. So this is where kind of those titles come up if you've changed it or edited the title of the pin. Otherwise, you don't see that above any of the other pins. So those ones weren't changed. But this was an important thought, so that was typed in. So let's click next section and we'll hop around. So here's the whiteboard. So again, I get to see my original image at the beginning, and the next page is going to go ahead and show my heat map view, and then I'll get my sentiment by section, and then I can continue on my next page, and then for each section, these are the items that I've pinned. So I can go ahead and edit or make sure I've got the right ones in there. And so I'll get each section separated out. And then if it's a close-ended survey, I'll get my little chart. Yeah, so I can't show you too much what the voting looks like, but it will just kind of have the thumbs up and thumbs down. I'll just hop into it, into the activities, give you a little idea. So it won't necessarily look like a full screen, but you'll see the thumbs up and thumbs down, and it'll have the aggregate number of, so if this was upvoted 10 times and downvoted 5 times, it would have a 5 in the middle here. So you'd get kind of that aggregated score view, and it would be from top to bottom, the highest ranked to the lowest in the reports. Maybe this community used voting. Okay, it did. Cool. We'll check it out in this one. So we'll go over to the Smart Report. All right, so I'm just gonna cruise through. Okay, here's a fill in the blank. We can check out this one too. So fill in the blank here, I'm able to view what I've placed, and I can see those pinned responses. So that's pretty familiar view. And the voting, my screen, it looks like little images get a little pixelated. When you download it, it doesn't look like that. So that's definitely something we'll be fixing. But if I look at it from here, I can see this is kind of what I'll get in that view. So I can see my top ranked ones up here had 18 more upvotes than downvotes. So the price and aesthetics of the product are big important factors. And down here at the bottom, nobody cares that there's aromatherapy capable or that the dog TV is enabled. So that has red and negative scores.